Senado is tatlo. Lagyan na natin tatlo. There's an intense assault coming from us, and then we are violating interparliamentary courtesy, and we are unduly interfering in their performance of legislative and constituent functions. Masarap po sana hindi na ito patulan, pero nasa title pa eh. So, that means they really believe this, Mr. President. So, I do not know what the House is after. And then meron pa po sila sa isang whereas clauses nila. I just failed to count kung what number this is, no? Ito na lang po. Whereas on January 30, 2024, the Senate conducted an investigation without a clear legislative purpose, specifically directed at discrediting the Honorable Speaker Ferdinand Marcos G. Romualdez and the House of Representatives. Ngayon, di ba po, Mr. President, when I allege that a member of this House has personal or ulterior motives, bawal po yun, di ba? That's unparliamentary conduct. Ito naman baliktad. Sinasabihan tayo ng House of Representatives na yung investigation natin, although sa title, in aid of legislation, wala daw tayong clear legislative purpose. Okay? I mean, that is the unparliamentary conduct, Mr. President. And for the information of the House, in a few minutes, I will already be filing a bill to make complete, in my opinion, which makes complete RA 6735. So now it can be used now as the legal basis for a people's initiative. Kasi yan ang ruling yung ruling ng Supreme Court. Alam na natin yan, na-remind tayo ulit because of this incident and our hearings, na-reinforce na mga resource persons na ganito nga yung ruling ng Supreme Court, ito yung kahinaan ng batas. So ayan yung clear legislative purpose at ito na ang clear legislative result. A bill will be filed which hopefully will now be sufficient to make RA 6735 as a clear, sufficient and adequate basis for the people to exercise the right to initiate amendments to our Constitution. So, nakakalungkot that the House, our co-equal body here in the legislative branch, has accused us of practices which they are doing in the very same accusatory document, Mr. President. So, ano ba talaga ang gusto nila? So siguro, the leadership, siguro, of the two houses must have a dialogue. So maybe our majority leader can talk to the majority leader of the House, Mr. President, for an honest-to-goodness dialogue. Ano ba talaga ang gusto nila? Kasi the document, pagbasahin mo, it betrays something. They want something which they seem not to be able to state properly and directly, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I haven't attended any hearing of the resolution filed regarding the People's Initiative chaired by Senator Amy Marcos. But I have been monitoring the events of the hearings that has been held by the Committee on Electoral Reforms. But never did I see or hear anybody or any member of the Senate accusing or assaulting any member of the House, especially the Speaker of the House. Wala naman hong binabanggit na pangalan ng kahit sinong representante ng Kamara dun sa House of Representatives. That's why I am picked because, again, the Senate as an institution is again facing another challenge here because of this resolution that has been approved by the House of Representatives, Mr. President.
So-
Mr. President, if I may just
Yes, please proceed, Majority Leader.
very short manifestation as I heard my name from the minority leader. Mr. President, during the hearing conducted by the chairperson in charge here in the Senate, Senator Amy Marcos, there are a lot of things that we were able to discover in aid of legislation, and that's why my question is if there is a resolution calling for an inquiry in aid of legislation, is this considered unparliamentary, Mr. President? Because in that particular hearing alone, Mr. President, we were able to air out a lot of concerns, particularly, for example, Mr. President, how the Commission on Election would actually address the receiving of signatures, Mr. President. 2 days later, Mr. President, after the hearing, I asked for our provincial election officer in Bulacan. And she herself stated that thank God for the meeting because right now, everything is under the scrutiny now of not just Congress but also of the Commission on Elections. For example, Mr. President, there was a time for a long period of time that the members of the Commission would say that it is just a ministerial duty for them to receive the signatures. And then all of a sudden, the NBank came up with a resolution saying, stop receiving, suspend the receipts of all these signatures. And so, what is it, Mr. President? Is it really ministerial? Is it discretionary? And now, during the hearing, it came about that COMELEC has been issuing certification.
Tama.
The Annex B came out. And so I asked, Mr. President, why are we issuing certification? I thought it's just a ministerial duty. Now, you're certifying. Now, the word certification means you are doing something. It's not just receiving, not just a ministerial duty. You are certifying. Now, the question, the million-dollar question is, how do you certify? How do you certify? And it appears there's no basis on how the Commission would certify these documents, Mr. President. Don't you think it's helpful, Mr. President? I think it's very helpful. Now, on the part of this representation as a member of this August Chamber, it bothers me, Mr. President, that our co-equal House, with the House of Representatives, would accuse the Senate of coming up with this so-called intense attacks, Mr. President. Intense attacks. I've been a member of Congress for quite some time, 9 years in the House of Representatives. I've never heard of any resolution like this, Mr. President. I am not going to file a resolution here in the Senate to congratulate our Senate President and tell him, Mr. President, we are all behind you. Or Senator Marcos, we are all behind you. I don't need to do that. Why? May isang salita ang mga senador. May isang salita. Hindi natin kailangan yun, Mr. President. The fact that we see each other, yung pagkamay natin sa isa't isa, alam na natin. Meron na tayong pinagkaisahan. Meron tayong pinagkasunduan, Mr. President. I cannot say otherwise with the other chamber, Mr. President, because, and I think this is the root cause of the problem, I think the leader of the House is not sharing the information that was shared to us by our Senate President. Doon sa mga pag-uusap, doon sa mga napag-usapan, na dumating yung mga pagkakataon ilang beses na hindi sila tumupad sa pinag-usapan. At ngayon, binibigyan pa tayo ng deadline nung isa, kung sino man yun, kung anong gagawin ng Senado. Tayo ba'y utusan dito, Mr. President? Tayo ba ay basta susunod na lamang kahit kanino? Mismong presidente ng Pilipinas, hindi ko narinig na sinabihan ang ating Senate President. I was there, Mr. President, during the meetings. Hindi ko kailanman narinig ang Pangulo ng Pilipinas at sabihin sa atin na ganito lang, dapat ganito yung timeline nyo, tapos na kayo, etc. And we are even talking about the soul of our nation. Mr. President, I take offense as I join the gentleman from San Juan in raising this particular issue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
So,
Mr.
yes, so
President.
Mr. President, itong panawagan ko po, Mr. President, na although this representation will soon file my own bill to improve 6735 because I filed also a bill in the 17th Congress. So medyo familiar na po yung opisina ko sa topic and we're ready with our own version. But I think our committee must continue and finish the work, Mr. President, and file a committee report, ano talagang findings, and then if there is also a bill coming from the committee, i-file na rin po natin yon. So it's without prejudice to my own to the bill which I am filing soon, Mr. President. So let's finish the hearing in aid of legislation to its logical conclusion. That is my call to this body and to the committee, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Mr.
on my part, as your chosen leader for this institution, I would like to say that it is very unfortunate that it had to come down to this. As a matter of fact, the last 2 weeks, araw-araw po ang press release, press conferences ng iba't ibang kongresista na umaatake sa atin. Halos lahat ng meetings, umapela po ako sa mga senador, let's bring down the temperature. Remember, I always say that, let's bring down the temperature of this heated political fight between the House and the Senate. As a matter of fact, in the last Monday's press con with the majority floor leader and the Senate President pro tempore, there were questions asked. May mga tanong, may mga katanungan po yung mga media na leading questions na mapapaaway talaga tayo sa mga kongresista. Ang palagi kong binabanggit, babaan natin ang temperatura ng away ng Kamara de Representante at ng Senado. Para sa ganun ay back to regular programming na po tayo at makapasa po tayo ng mga legislatura o mga bills na kailangan ng ating bansa. It is unfortunate that the other side, even over the weekend, nagpalabas po ng banat sa akin na itupad ang pangako daw natin na may timeline on March na tapusin yung RBH 6. Alam niyo po, although we are co-equal legislative branch, but we're an independent body in the Senate. We respect each and individual senator here. We do not shepherd the members of the Senate like sheep in a flock. Here in the Senate, everyone is free to deliver their feelings, their advocacies, and their policies on certain issues. Hindi po natin gawaan dito sa Senado na po ako, utusan ko kayo na ipasa ang RBH 6 in 2 weeks. Baka akong tatanggalin ninyo, mga kasamahan ko. Diba? Who am I to force my 23 other members? I am just as you say in the Supreme Court, I am first of equals. Equal po tayo lahat dito. And so, it is unfortunate that it has led to that. Even the media can see and say that I have not said anything derogatory about any member of the House of Representatives. All my privileged speeches and all my statements, and these are statements, hindi po to interview na uminit ang ulo ko at nagsalita po ako. All my statements and privileged speeches have been about the institution, about the bicameral nature of Congress, about checks and balances. Always about that. Wala po akong personality na pinapatamaan. Wala po. Kaya kung feeling assaulted sila, how? How? If the committee is just performing its duty, if Committee on Electoral Reforms is just performing its duties, they deal on facts. Very clear in the last hearing, the last 2 hearings, the facts had come out. The facts have been coming out. If there is whether it is for or against the topic at hand or the decisions at hand, so be it. But we are just dealing with facts. Now, how do we end this? I do not know. this impasse between the House of Representatives and the Senate. Again, many of my colleagues, like Senator Angara and Senator Bato de la Rosa, have already said ceasefire. As a matter of fact, I have not been discussing this issue and been telling the media, babaan natin yung temperatura para makatrabaho na po tayo. Parang ayaw po sumunod ng House of Representatives at hindi na po natin kasalanan yun, mga kababayan ko. Hindi na po namin kasalanan yun. As far as we're concerned, we are back to work. We just passed the PNP reorganization bill, which is a priority measure of the President. And in the coming weeks, we'll be passing other priority measures. Pero rest assured, ang ipapasa natin, hindi dahil lamang nasa listahan na hinihingi po ng eksekutibo. Marami tayong ipapasa ng mga batas dito na wala sa listahan, pero sa tingin ng senador, tingin ng Senado ay napakahalaga para sa kapakanan ng ating bansa at ng ating mga kababayan. Hindi tayo utus-utusan lamang na nandyan ang listahan, please pass immediately. And we take pride that we in the Senate allow each and every member to stand up, to deliberate, to debate on these issues. That's the Senate. That is the bulwark. This institution is a bulwark of democracy and of free speech. Wala po tayong sinesensor dito. Wala po tayong pinapagalitan dito. Dahil gusto po nilang mag-participate, mag-amenda, at makipagdebate. We take pride of that. And I'm proud of each and every one of you to stand up for these principles. Kaya mabuhay ang Senado, mabuhay ang ating demokrasya sa ating bansa. Maraming salamat. Please,
Thank you,
go
Mr.
ahead.
President. Just an unsolicited advice para hindi na masyado lumaki itong sunog, yung away ng House tsaka ng Senado. Because I've been here since 2004 and this is the first time that I have witnessed na talaga nagkakabangayan itong dalawang bahay ng Kongreso, ang Senado at tsaka yung House of Representatives. If I may suggest, siguro yung leadership ng Senate tsaka leadership ng House, mag-usap-usap na para matapos na. Ano ba talaga gusto ninyo, pare ko? Ano ba gusto natin dito mangyari para matapos na lahat? Kasi balang araw, habang tumatagal yung away ng House of Representatives tsaka Senado, baka bumagsak yung ekonomiya natin, yun ang nakakatakot. Baka matakot yung ating mga foreign investors, hindi na pumasok dito. That's why I suggest, my humble suggestion is that if you want me to make representations with the House of Representatives, I will do that. Para lang magkaroon tayo ng settlement. Para wala naman masyadong bangayan na nangyayari sa atin. If kung utusan niyo po ako, Ginoong Pangulo, I can do that. Kahit ngayon, pwede kong tawagan sila speaker.
But we will no, that function is of the position of the leadership. With due respect,
Yes, yes.
Senator Angara, Senator Estrada. And bukas naman ang tanggapan namin ni Speaker na makipag-usap. I just don't know kung kailan, but within the eventual future. No, for the good of the country, we will
Yes,
do
for
it.
the good of the country.
For the
Mr.
good of the
President.
country, we'll do it, as I said, no?
The pro tempe, the majority floor leader, or even the minority floor leader, if he wants to.
You know, for the good of the country, we will do
For
it.
the good of the country.
For the good of the country, we'll do it, as I said, no? Hindi po personal ito. Hindi po tayo gumagawa ng hakbang para mapaganda ang buhay ng mga senador. Dito, trabaho lang po tayo para sa ating bansa. So, for the good of the country, bukas ang tanggapan namin para makipag-usap sa House of Representatives para matigil na po itong bangayan na ito.
It's nice to hear, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I also put into the records my sincerest support with the statement of the Senate President that despite the fact na ilang beses hindi tumutugon yung ating mga nakausap, para sa bayan, gagawin pa rin natin yung we
continue to walk the extra mile just for the sake of our country and people. Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask for a minute suspension?
Session suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. This juncture, I move, and with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed with the privileged speech and recognize the distinguished gentleman from Camarines Norte and Nueva Ecija, no other than Senator Robin Hood Padilla, to deliver here his speech. So move, Mr. President.
Our distinguished colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, at sa ating pong pinunong mayorya. A'udhu billahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Bismillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ginoong tagapangulo, sa mga kagalang-galang na miyembro ng lupon na ito, tumitindig po ako sa pulpitong ito sa bisa ng kolektibo at personal na pribilehiyo na iginawad sa inyong abang lingkod ng mamamayang Pilipino. Napaka-init po, masalimuot at mapanghati. Ganito po ang aking paglalarawan sa mga pangyayaring bumalot at nangingibabaw sa mga ulo ng mga balita sa ating bayan nitong mga nakalipas na linggo at hanggang ngayon pong kasalukuyan. Mabuti na lamang po ay mayroong magandang balita na nangyayari dito po sa Senado. Hindi po mapagkakaila na pati po tayo dito, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, ay may mga forces na gusto rin tayong guluhin. Katunayan, ang inyo pong lingkod ay pinipilit ng mga ibang forces na ito Alam niyo po, Ginoong Pangulo, wala pong pinakamagandang nangyari sa pagiging senador ko kung hindi yung panahon na ang akin pong Ginoong Pangulo, ang Senate President at ang Senate Tempor at ang ginagalang kong Senador Sani Angara at Senadora Loren Ligarda ay nag-file na itong bill na atin pong dinidinig, isang resolusyon, isang panukala na nagbibigay buhay sa akin pong mga adhikain. Alam niyo po, Ginoong Pangulo, yun po ang pinakamagandang desisyon na nakita ko at pinakatamang desisyon na pamunuan po ito ng ating abogado at ekonomista na si Senator Sani Angara. Sapagkat ito po ay, ang pinag-uusapan po dito ay sanga-sanga. Sanga-sanga na po. Katunayan sa ginanap pong pagdinig kanina, ay napag-usapan po yung mga tensyon at mga diskusyon na nakaakibat ng panukala na ito. Itong resolusyon na ito, itong hakbangin na ito. Sapagkat hindi po may pagkakaila at kanina ilang beses din na sinabi na yung nasa Section 1, Artikulo 17 ng ating saligang batas na nagsasaad na ang anumang susog o pagbabago sa konstitusyon ito ay maaaring ipanukala ng Kongreso sa pamamagitan ng 3/4 na boto ng lahat ng mga kagawad nito. Sa wikang Ingles, any amendment to or revision of this Constitution may be proposed by Congress upon a vote of 3/4 of all its members. Marami na pong mga eksperto, lupo ng mga abogado, mambabatas, mga mahistrado, at legal luminaries na nagbigay ng kani-kanilang mga interpretasyon sa probisyong ito. Halimbawa po, ayon kina dating Justice Vicente V. Mendoza at iba pang mga bihasa sa konstitusyon, ang dalawang houses ay dapat magtagpo at magdebate ng sabayan jointly. Pero boboto ng hiwalay, separately. Malinaw po yan na ipinagdiinan ni Justice Vicente V. Mendoza. Dama din po natin ang silakbo ng damdamin ni Justice Mendoza sa ating pagdinig sa Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes sa kanyang naratibo tungkol sa talastasan sa pagitan ni na Commissioner Jose Suarez at Commissioner Florence Regalado sa komposisyon ng Section 1 at 2 ng Artikulo 17. Base po sa opisyal na record, sa paglilinaw ni Commissioner Regalado, sakaling bicameral legislative body ang mamutawi, sinabi po mismo ni Commissioner Suarez na ilalagay sa konstitusyon ang pariralang in joint session assembled. Bagamat ito po ay tila nakaligtaan. Hindi naman po tahimik ang mga tala sa intensyong ito. Ginoong Pangulo, atin pong binibigyan diin na sa 1987 Constitution, ang mismong bumuhay muli sa bicameralism sa Pilipinas matapos ipatupad ang unicameralism noong 1973. Malinaw po dito ang intensyon ng mga delegado upang panatilihin ang bicameralism sa ating kasalukuyang konstitusyon. Nararapat din po nating isaalang-alang na sa probisyon pagdating sa kapangyarihang maghayag ng pag-iral ng kalagayang digma o Declaration of State of War, sinasaad po ng 1987 Constitution, the Congress, by vote of 2/3 of both houses in joint session assembled, voting separately, shall have the sole power to declare existence of a state of war. Yan po ay nasa Seksyon 23, Artikulo 6. Mas malinaw pa po ito sa sikat ng araw, Ginoong Tagapangulo. Kung sa mismong pagdideklara ng kalagayang digma nga po, ay sinasabi na ang dalawang kapulungan na magkasamang magtitipon sa sesyon at magkahiwalay ang pagboto. Magkahiwalay. Nararapat lamang po na ito rin ang gamiting panuntuan sa pamamaraan ng pagboto ng mga mambabatas pagdating sa pag-amyenda ng saligang batas. Dahil po dito, iminumungkahi po ng inyong lingkod sapagkat ilang beses po inulit ng mga bihasa, mga magagaling na sa konstitusyon natin, ilang beses nilang inulit. Kanina sa hearing, sinasabi mismo nila na oversight. Oversight ito. Talagang nakalimutan. Talagang hindi na ilagay. Ilang beses po nilang inulit. Kaya ang akin pong mungkahi, Ginoong Pangulo, bakit hindi po natin unang harapin yung usapin ng pagboto doon sa usapin ng voting separately? Sapagkat ito pong ating panukala, ating resolusyon, ating gustong ibahagi, ang lahat ng ito, kapag ka hindi na naman natuloy, halimbawa, wag naman sana ipahintulot ng Panginoon Diyos na matuloy na ang amenda ng economic provision. No halimbawa, hindi po natuloy, titigil na naman po ang usapin patungkol sa voting separately. Mananahimik na naman tayo. Itong 19th Congress, palalampasin po ba natin ang pagkakataon na sa atin mismo, tayo mismo, amendahan na natin yaang nasa Artikulo 17, Section 1. Tayo na po ang mag-amenda at ilagay na natin yung sinasabi ng mga eksperto sa batas kanina, sa saligang batas, sinasabi nila ng nakaligtaan. Kaya po tayo ay nagsulong kanina upang amendahan po mismo, upang matuldukan na po talaga ang kalituhang dulot ng probisyon na ito. Sa pamamagitan po yan, Ginoong Pangulo, na isang resolusyon na aking hinihain kaninang umaga. Ayon nga po kay Professor Emeritus Dr. Gerardo P. Sicat mula sa School of Economics ng Universidad ng Pilipinas, merong mga pagkakamaling nakapaloob sa ating kasalukuyang konstitusyon na napagtanto lamang natin matapos ang ilang dekada ng pagtalima dito. Tama po si Dr. Sicat na kung ordinaryong batas lamang po ito ay napakadali ng maging proseso sa mga mungkahing susog. Subalit dahil ang supreme law of the land na po ang ating pinag-uusapan, hindi natin ito pwedeng basta-basta maisakatuparan. Ginoong Pangulo, ang akin pong salmo sa inyo at sa aking mga kasama, kasabay po sana nating talakayin ang patungkol po sa aking resolusyon na atin pong harapin na, ngayon na, itong patungkol sa voting separately. Sana po ay makasabay nito sa ating pagdinig sa patungkol naman po sa pang-ekonomiyang probisyon. Sapagkat sa akin pong palagay, ito na po ang panahon upang linawin natin kung ano man po ang nakaligtaan ng mga bumuo ng 1987 Constitution. Tayo po ang maging daan upang malinawan, matigil na ang kalituhan, at tayo po magkaroon na ng katahimikan at hindi na maulit muli ang mga palitan ng salita, palitan ng mga press releases, sapagkat ito lamang po ang solusyon. Kapag ka ito ay naamendahan natin ang Section 1 ng Article 17, matatapos na po ang usapin. Yan na po ang magbibigay ng closure na talagang ang ating saligang batas, ang pinagtitibay ng ating saligang batas ay bicameral. Ang dalawang house at ang dalawang house na ito ay may kanya-kanyang power, voting power. Hindi po pwedeng kailanman ay maging jointly. Yun lamang po, maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, at mabuhay po ang Senado.
Maraming salamat sa ating kapatid, Robin Hood Padilla.
Thank you. Mr. President, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senator Robin Hood Padilla to the Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes. I so move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved.
Just some administrative matters, Mr. President, and with the permission of the body, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 1964 entitled Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act and House Bill number 9682 entitled Teaching Supplies Allowance Act. I so move, Mr. President.
The following members are hereby designated the Senate conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 1964 and House Bill number 9682. They are the chairperson, Senator Ramon Bong Revilla, and the member of the majority, Senator Wing Gatchalian, and the part of the minority, it's Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel III.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, February 6, 2024. So move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, the session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, February 6, 2024. Have a pleasant evening.